Hello everyone, welcome back to the KMTRADERS channel. So this is the full market analysis volume 103, just giving it insight for the next week. So we are starting off 2022, brand new year, and yeah, we're going to head straight into the markets with gold. So coming off from last year, pretty much the analysis for gold is pretty much kind of still stay the same. We are still looking for some sell-off opportunities here. So I think from last week we was looking at or potentially anticipating price to probably reach into 1840 levels, and we're just waiting for price to show the intention that it wants to drop, potentially into the 1700s. So yeah, as we can see here, price is probably still looking like it's stepping up. So we can use maybe an upside trend line quickly just to give you an area to look at. But basically we could use this trend line as a way to potentially see if price wants to drop lower. So if we start to see price selling off, and if we get like a retest of this, we can pretty much hold, well, we could expect price to drop off to at least maybe 1750 all the way to the downside. But yeah, I'm still quite bearish on this, and as long as we're staying below this level, so 1880 or this zone, I think that we could we should be still sales are still valid. But if we go any higher, so like so, if we break up, then I'll be waiting for that retest scenario to set up trade. Okay, so let's take a look at EU. So EU, there was actually a really good trade. Yeah, there was actually a really good trade that you could have taken, just a nice 100 or so pips, but I think this could still carry on pushing up higher. So this was a nice call to get in on. If you were trading on the back end of last week, you possibly may have got into this, but essentially it was looking for some sort of push or retrace, and then for price to continue. So now that we've reached that kind of area and that level, what we're trying to see now, let's just try and look at the overall move here. So now that we've kind of fulfilled this, we're trying to now see what's happening at 1.14. Again, there's a few possibilities that could happen, but I think what we could anticipate here is probably just not getting rid of that scenario. Maybe we could have one likelihood that price starts to break lower, we wait for that retest and that continuation lower, or let me just move this across, or we're going to see just a little bit more of a push up higher before we then start to sell off. Okay, so pretty much we have, like, I guess, two opportunities to get involved with, but it really depends. Well, we have two scenarios that we can get in, and basically my bias for this now is for a sell-off. I feel like this has taken, we've had almost two taps into 1.14. We'll see how far this can, potentially push up. If it wants to show the intention that it's going to drop, then maybe we can see a possibility of dropping lower if we start to see that intention. I think one area that is quite important is the 1.3 level. So this level here, it's going to be quite interesting to see how price responds to this. But I'm just going to leave it in there. So this could be potentially like a retest level that we could use, or to confirm that yes, price is now willing to drop lower. I think this could be a level that if we start to see some of that rejection, we could see price dropping lower. So wherever price is right now to the downside, that's the anticipated target. So good 200 pips. So let's see if we can fulfill this level to the downside. So moving on to NZDUSD. So what we're looking at here is, hold on one second. So essentially it's a similar kind of outlook on this pair with EU. Essentially what we're trying to see is if price is still willing to push up high, because I wasn't really entirely too happy with how prices pushed up after this leg. So as we can see here, this was kind of it stalled quite a bit. It never really continued to I guess flourish and push a lot higher, taking into 0.69. So what we could be on the lookout for, again, this is probably going to be two different scenarios here. I'll give a buy side and a sell side too, but what we could be just being mindful of is that if price starts to tap into these areas here, we could start to see a sell-off, strong sell-off, and obviously you can get involved after the retest, and we could be just looking for price to push lower. So you could look at taking the top off. If we see a rejecting candle, then we could see a price sell-off. But if we miss that, or if you guys miss that too, you can always wait for that retest scenario, and then hopefully it continues to drop off. And we're looking for probably for price to go into 0.67 if this happens. The alternative is that price may want to drop just a bit lower, and then it could probably push up higher just a little bit, and then from here it's going to be a kind of deciding factor, because you could look to anticipate a buy opportunity, but like I said, I guess you would probably move this around here. Sorry, this is a bit confusing, but hold on one second. So basically what I'm trying to say in this scenario here is that we could get price to drop off and then push up higher, and then once we make that new high, let's just say, and we tap into this area, it's going to be a deciding factor. Is this going to rock it off and break this downtrend, or are we going to get the rejecting candle? So if it's the rejecting candle, then we can move on to the sell-off scenario. Okay, so that's why I wanted to move that around. But yeah, we could probably look for early buys and then look for that potential sell-off during the week to the downside. I think that could be a nice scenario to look at. I will probably get rid of the downside option now, but essentially you kind of understand what I'm trying to go for here is this potential move up, and then we're going to be looking around this zone here, 0.69 zone, to see if there's a potential retest scenario or a rejecting scenario, and then we'll go from there. So looking at AUDUSD, so again, what we were anticipating here was price to probably make some sort of downfall move. It really hasn't been that clear, but essentially what we're looking at is pretty much this ability for price to again drop off again, just like EU and NZDUSD. So what we probably will have to wait for is for price to probably drop down just a little bit more, and then potentially look at a buying option. I'm not really sure if it's worth it, but there is a few pips that you could probably grab on the upside. But in terms of like the high time frame or the long-term kind of perspective, I think that there is a possibility that price could drop lower. You could look at that retest scenario and then continuing for price to drop off. So that's probably where you would that you could be looking out for. But yeah, I don't think that this is going to rocket off anytime soon. I think that this is just the stalling of price, and we could end up we could end up pushing lower. So we could use this top level as a channel for a potential barrier. Again, you could watch for patterns on this upside level, and then watch it sell off. So I'm just curious to see if we stay within this range, and we could channel in this region. But ideally my bias is early off in the week probably to buy to make a new high, and then we're going to watch if this is going to if it's going to if we're going to rocket up higher and accelerate, or if we start to see some of those rejecting candles to insinuate that price is not really going to continue higher. So that's kind of the basis for AUDUSD. USDJPY, So I'm looking in this at this pair in kind of like two states of mind. So again, we're probably looking for price to potentially sell off, and if this does, then there's going to be a long anticipated move to the downside, or there is going to be a break towards the upside. And if so, then the best well, the best option for this pair would probably be to wait for that retest scenario and then for those continuations higher. So that's pretty much what I've got for UJ. Taking a look at CADJPY, so as you can see, price is completely bulleted towards the upside. I think with this pair right now, it's fair to say that price has blown past the 90 region and has now it does look like it's showing the intent to push up higher. So now I'm going to focus my attention to see if we can now possibly reach a 93. And with that, what we could be looking at now is essentially just that move up higher. So we can go ahead and get rid of some of these zones now. I'm quite happy to get rid of this one. I'll keep the 88 level, but essentially it's this second scenario that we've got drawn up here, which is that if price was to break that 90 level, we would be waiting for that retest. So we simply are now just waiting for price to come back down and ultimately give us some sort of pullback. So we could even find a retest of this downtrend here as a possibility, but obviously it doesn't have to happen. But that could see we could see price come here, tap, and then continue into an upside move. So if it starts to drop lower, that's probably a good intention, but that can also give you an opportunity to take a counter trade just in case that this doesn't hold up and doesn't go higher. So it could end up taking some sells from the upside, watching it drop off, waiting for that buying opportunity. If it comes, then you're able to buy up to the upside. But if it doesn't come, then you pretty much get to ride this all the way to the downside, and it most likely will take out 87.5. And that's obviously off the basis of if price does not want to turn up to the upside. Okay. So moving on to EJ, if we take a look at this pair, we're pretty much seeing price stepping up nice and almost effortlessly, especially through December period. So we've seen this nice strong move. I think essentially what we said from last week is we're trying to see we're trying to seek out a pullback. So yeah, ideally I'm just waiting for price to show us that intention that it wants to move up. Wants it to fall back down for it to then, so that we can buy it and look for those continuation moves higher. So that's essentially the bias for that pair. I don't really have too much thoughts on EJ, to be honest, but that one is quite tricky. Excuse me. But essentially we are trying to see what price is essentially wanting to do. So with AUDJPY, we're pretty much looking at a similar story. How we're waiting for price to pull back to some degree, so we're kind of using the uptrend as a kind of measurement tool or kind of guidance tool. So in theory, we're trying to wait for price to pull back to some degree, and then we can look at that continuation move higher. But once we get up to here from the if we do make this new high, and this is the second question that we've had in mind, is that if price is willing to make a reversal from here, it could end up dropping all the way to the downside like so, which is obviously very drastic. But I am thinking about this move if we make a new high. And also I'm curious to see if we can hold up this uptrend here, and obviously looking at price action we can see what's going to unfold. But I think for now we just need to continue this move up towards the upside, as it's looking quite bullish. So I'm not really too sure what kind of intention is unfolding here. I'm just following price. Looking at the strength right now, it looks like it needs to kind of pull back before continuing, and then from there we can probably estimate what's going to happen moving on. So coming to our last two pairs, which is USD Chef. So we're coming to pretty much a very critical zone or critical area in our overall analysis, because this is going to be the determining point if we are going to continue buys to the upside, or if we're going to look for sells. And if we look for sells, we could be looking for price moves to push a lot lower. So essentially we're around the 91 region, so this zone, and what we want to try and do is see that if we find a rejection and we start to see a lot of bullish price moves, then it's possibly most likely that price is willing to push up higher. But if we start to see price break through this zone, we're probably going to be looking at that retest scenario. Okay, so they're pretty much it's not really you know, in my mind, this is not I'm not trying to overcomplicate it, but essentially I'm just waiting for price to show what it wants to do first before I want to partake in this pair. So that's my kind of intention. And finally, USD CAD. So with this pair, pretty much we've been looking at price to turn over towards the upside. Excuse me. I was anticipating price to probably turn over towards the upside, and anticipating that price was going to, you know, give some sort of fake out. But, you know, really it was an absolute strength towards the downside. So it's kind of giving me an incentive to potentially look at a sell side scenario where if we get a break of this zone, we could be watching for a retest structure and simply just a price continuation of price moving a lot lower. And essentially this zone here at 1.26 will give us an indication if we are pushing lower, or if we find at least some sort of rejection from here, we could be looking at price to, you know, essentially push a lot higher towards the upside. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much all that I've got for this week. There's obviously the start of the new year, so obviously I hope everything you know, wish you good luck in your own trading journey, and a good start to your new year. If you're not profiting yet, or if you just started learning, or you are profiting, then, you know, it doesn't really matter. Eventually you will get there. Just take some time to figure out where you are on the journey, and it will all come to place. So that will be all from us. If you haven't done so already, make sure you join our trading group. I'm planning eventually to drop some stuff into there. Just haven't figured out exactly what I'm going to do. But yeah, join that trading group, and yeah, you're more than welcome to ask me any other questions if you need to, and I'll get back to you obviously as soon as I can. So that'll be all from us. Thank you very much for listening, guys, and we'll see you all on next week's video.